Many of your graders, you're going to let them just handle all this. If you've got pine trees, they'll push them over, they'll cut them up, and they will give them to somebody, or they'll take advantage of it themselves and haul them to a mill. And what they'll do is they won't give you any money for them, but what they'll do is they'll haul them off and won't charge you extra to do that. And you're not going to be paying to have them carried to a dump. The same is true with your oak trees, your hardwoods. Even if you have a specimen hardwood that could technically be worth a good amount of money, the grader, no one's going to pay you for it. What they'll tell you is we'll haul it off for free, but we're not going to pay you for it. That's okay. Let them have it if they'll haul it off for free, and you will be saving money by doing that. Because it really pays to have experience in dealing with graders, because a lot of them want to pay by, want to charge by the hour. And if you're not familiar with the industry, it's hard for you to tell if they're just wasting time, your time and money, or whether they're getting a lot done. On your first home, what I want you to do is I want you to talk with at least three different grading companies. And if they are legitimate companies and they know what they're doing, they're going to be able to do what I mentioned here. They're going to be able to look at your site plan, and they're going to be able to look at your 2-foot topography map. And from the site plan and topo map, they're going to be able to calculate how much dirt they're going to need to remove. And if there's excess dirt, how much is going to have to be hauled off. If they're going to be short of dirt, they'll be able to calculate how much dirt they need to bring in. And hauling off dirt and buying dirt can be very, very expensive. I've run into bills of $30,000+ doing this on a residential home. And that is a major upset if you don't know this up front. But they can look at these site plans, the topo map, and they can calculate this. Now, what I suggest is if you need dirt, don't worry about that right now. If you've got a lot of excess dirt, I don't want you to get rid of it right now unless you just have so much there's not enough places to put it. Then you're going to be forced to get rid of part of it. But I don't want you to get rid of all the dirt now. Save a big chunk of it, because the thing I don't want, which I've seen people do, is they get rid of all the excess dirt and then they come back later and they need dirt. Now they're having to buy it. And dirt is one of these things, if you got it, you can't get rid of it. And if you need it, you can't find anybody that's got any. So you wind up paying money for it, which I really hate. If I need dirt, I really check around to see if someone's building near me that's got excess dirt. I'll have to pay for the truck and tractor time, but at least I don't have to pay for the dirt. But I want you to have 3 graders look at your site plan, which includes your topography map. I want you to get a firm price on doing the initial grading on the property. Clearing it, digging for the foundation or clearing for a crawl space or slab, and preparing the driveway so you can get in and out without any problem during construction. And I'll be talking about what I mean about preparing the driveway. And you get a firm price to do this. Now, understand there will be contingencies on the firm price because the grader has no idea what's underneath the surface of the ground. If you're digging for a basement, then he's going to have a clause in there that if he hits rock, it could cost more. He's going to have a clause in there that if he's digging down and hits a buried trash pile that no one knew was there, it'd been there for 30 years, and the way everything was grown up, there was no way to tell it was there, then he's going to need to clear all that trash out, and that's going to cost extra. If you're digging down and the ground, the soil is just terrible soil, not conducive for a foundation, then anything needed to repair that soil, which I'll tell you how to do later, could cost extra. So you are going to have some contingencies for the unknown, but for the most part, unless you hit something out of the ordinary, they can give you a firm price to go in and do what I'm getting ready to tell you. Especially on your first home with no experience, that you do this. Because it is a nightmare to start off right out of the gate, and you get in there and you have budgeted for this job $10,000, and when all the dust settles, it's $30,000. Boy, that just shoots a major hole in your budget right out of the gate. What a nightmare. And that happens all the time. Get a firm price. Have that firm price in your budget. And you'll sleep a lot better at night. And you don't have to stand there and watch them and worry about them and feel like they're sloughing off, that they're wasting time, they're wasting your money if you're dealing with a firm price. Now, what the grader needs to do for this price is he'll come in and he'll clear out all the trees and brush inside the silt fence area we call the disturbance area. They'll haul all this stuff off. They'll get rid of it. And after they get all the limbs and brush and trees removed, they're going to come in and they're going to scrape off the topsoil. You want to think about and pile the topsoil where it's not going to be in the way, because you're not going to use the topsoil again until the home is almost completely finished. So you don't want to pile it where you're going to need to dig for a septic tank, or where you're going to need to run a water line or sewer line, or you'll pay to move it twice. And if you got a ton of topsoil and the grader says, good night, you got more topsoil than we got places to put it, I tell you what, we'll haul it off, won't even charge you extra. Don't do that. If you have to go buy topsoil, you cannot imagine how much it costs. Hang on to your topsoil. Your landscaping will just be so much nicer if you got a good layer of topsoil at the tail end of construction. After they remove the topsoil, you need to get your surveyor out there, and what they will do is they will stake an area 4 feet outside the location of your foundation wall. You need to tell the grader up front you're going to be doing this. Because if you don't tell the grader up front, if you tell the grader now, stop construction until the surveyor gets out here and marks the location of the foundation, oh, he's just going to bellyache about how you're costing him time and money. He's got all this expensive equipment sitting out there and blah, blah, blah. So tell them up front that you're going to do this, and they'll say, oh, yeah, okay, that's good. And see, it helps them really, because they're not out there having to do it and guess it. Now, they can't wait for days on the surveyor. You need to coordinate with the surveyor that on a given day, the grader should have everything cleared out, the topsoil removed, and I need you to get out there and stake out the location of the foundation, but it's not the location of the foundation. It's 4 feet outside where the foundation is going. After the surveyor stakes this, the grader's going to get in there and he will grade that area for either a concrete slab, a home with a concrete floor, or he'll grade it for a crawl space if that's what you're going to have. Or if you're going to have a full basement, he will excavate down for a full basement. And the reason I wanted to go 4 feet out is because as he digs down on a basement especially, you would like 2 to 4 feet from the basement wall to that bank. to give people adequate room to get down there and waterproof your foundation wall. Also, that bank should have a slight slope to it. The grader should be well aware of how to do this so you don't have any risk of any banks caving in and burying any of the people like doing the waterproofing. And if you usually clear about 4 feet out, and start digging down at that point, you're going to be fine. And the grader is going to know exactly what to do. Also, from your site plan, it's going to show the finished floor elevation of your basement. I want you to look at some of the graphics at 24/7 to give you an idea of what you need to be thinking about on the elevation of your basement. But the grader will use that finished floor elevation in order to know how deep to dig that hole and when to stop digging. If he doesn't go down deep enough, your home's going to sit too high out of the ground. If he goes down deeper, then you could have additional foundation walls that are going to cost you additional money. So he wants to stop right on the money. And normally this is 8 inches below the finished floor level to compensate for 4 inches of stone and 4 inches of concrete. After the grader excavates for the basement, for example, you will now have your surveyor come back out there and they will stake all the corner locations of your foundation. And the reason why you want this is going to make the foundation sub's job a lot easier. They're going to know right where the foundation is. But the big thing is it's going to let you know that there is adequate room in that hole for the foundation. There is nothing worse than for this area to be excavated. The grader takes all of his equipment and leaves the job, and now you get down there with the foundation sub and find out that the bank is too close to the foundation or it's encroaching the foundation. To get that grader back out there could cost you quite a bit of money. So before the grader leaves, you want the surveyor to go out there and stake the corners of your foundation to verify that the bank is not too close to the foundation. There is adequate room to work. You're also going to verify that the grader stopped the finished floor level where he's supposed to stop, that it's not too high, not too low. And once this checks out, then the grader is good to go. And while the surveyor is doing this, so the grader is not wasting time or waiting on you, the grader can go ahead and be preparing everything for the driveway, clearing out for the drive. And your surveyor could also stake where the drive is going to go if there's any question of that. And you want to go ahead and put stone on the drive. One thing I failed to mention is in the erosion control part, most cities and counties, you have got to have this erosion control in place before you start clearing land and digging for a foundation. If they come out there and see you clearing land and digging for a foundation before this erosion control is up, they will shut your job site down and they will fine you. And if you don't, if the city or county inspectors don't catch it, don't worry about your neighbors will. They'll call them. Matter of fact, I tell the cities and counties they're wasting our tax money hiring inspectors. The neighbors do a far better job. They're out there with tape measures, everything, checking everything. Now, one thing the erosion control sub will not do is up at the entrance where the trucks go in and out, is probably going to indicate you've got to put stone at the entrance so you're not getting any mud in the street. The silt fences will minimize mud going into the street or to your neighbor's property or a creek or a stream or something like that. The stone at the entrance is going to be stopping mud, these trucks dragging mud out in the street. You get mud in the street, in many areas, they'll shut the job site down. Now, when the grader first shows up, part of his job is going to prepare this entrance and put stone on this entrance to satisfy any erosion problems. So when the inspector shows up, there's no issues. And after they put the stone on the entrance, they can now go back and start clearing the land and excavating for your foundation. I would like to encourage you, before the grader leaves, not to just have stone at the entrance where the trucks go in and out, but especially if you're building any distance back from the road, that the grader will go ahead and clear out for the driveway. They will excavate for the driveway, and on the driveway they'll put a layer of stone so that trucks can get in and out, deliver material. You may want to think in terms of where you may want to store material or where you want everybody to park, and you may want stone in that area so that when you have rains, you don't have a major mud hole problem and people are able to work on your home. I've had beautiful days go by and no one able to work on my home because he couldn't get in and out the driveway. What a hassle. And they can go ahead and prepare this drive at this point, and it's going to create a good base for your future drive later. Because as they drive in and out on this driveway, they're going to be compacting that stone down and just giving you a good base for your future drive. So when he grades the drive, it needs to be graded according to the plan on pretty much how the finished drive is going to be. Another thing I want to mention is the stone that we use in construction. It's always designated like number 3, number 4, number 5, number 7 stone. Now, the smaller the number, the larger the rock. A lot of builders on your driveways, they'll use what we call a number 57 stone, which is a number 5 and 7 stone mixed together. I see a problem in a lot of cases with number 57 stone. It will just disappear in the mud, as you get rain. My preference would be on the drive that you use a number 4 stone. Now that number 4 stone is, it's kind of rough driving in and out of it because it's a big stone. But the beauty of number 4 is by it being a little larger, it's going to be knocking mud off those truck tires to minimize getting mud in the street. I will say if you've got a real steep grade, number 4 could be a little bit of a problem. The bottom line, talk with the grader. The grader has forgotten more than you and I know about this. Tell them your concerns, tell them what you want, but you want it to be something that will hold up good during construction, that you're not constantly bringing tractors and stone out there repairing it all during the construction of the home. And the grader will know what you're talking about. I just hope the few things I've told you will give you a little insight on being able to ask some intelligent questions and kind of know what's going on. As your grader is winding up, your electrician should be showing up to install a temporary power pole on the job site. Now, the temporary power pole, you're going to need to be aware of whether your power in the area is underground or overhead. And the electrician may require that you tell them this so they'll know what type of temporary power pole to bring to the job site. And the electrician this temporary power pole belongs to the electrician. And when the job is finished, the electrician will pick this up and they will keep it. Most electricians, because you gave them the job, they will do this temporary power pole at no additional charge. That's what I like, but I have seen some electricians charge the customer, for this temporary power pole. So you may want to check on that when you're getting bids on the job, or request when you're getting bids, okay, I'll go with you and I want you to furnish a temporary power pole. Another thing about the temporary power pole, after they set it up, what you'll do is get it inspected. And when you pass the inspection, then the power company will come out there and put a meter in it, so you will have temporary service during construction. If your temporary power pole, well, the temporary power pole is normally up at the street. But if your home is sitting back, let's say 50, 100 feet or more from the street, then you may want to request that your electrician run a temporary line over closer to the job site and just put a temporary box there, so all your subs, they won't have any trouble with extension cords and stuff like this, having to drag them out, 200 or 300 feet. At the same time, if you have access to city or county water, you probably had to purchase a water meter. More than likely, you had to do it as part of your building permit process. You also had to probably pay a water tap fee so you could tap into the water line. And you went ahead and applied for water service, so then when they install the water meter, they'll go ahead and hook things up so you will have water during construction. If there is a designated place for water meters in your area, that's where they'll install it. As I mentioned, if there's not a designated area, you will have staked a place up at the street where you want the water meter, so they don't put it in the center of your future driveway. After they install the water meter, you will have your plumber go out there and they will put a spigot on the water meter so you'll have access to water during construction. Again, when you're getting bids from the plumber, have it as part of your bid that they will come out and put a temporary spigot on the water meter, no additional charge. If you don't cover this in the bid process, the plumber will more than likely, in many cases, send you an additional bill to put a spigot on the water meter. If you do not have access to city or county water, now is when I recommend you install a water well. And you can go to 24/7 and see some graphics regarding water wells. The reason why I want you to do the water well now is because it's a lot easier to get in and install the well before you begin construction of the home, because you've got everything cleared out, than it is to do it later. And you're going to need to get the well in because you're going to need water during the construction of the home. If you are going to have a water well, as I mentioned in the preliminary part of putting all your plans together, I would check with the health department in your area. Well, first of all, to see if you're going to have to permit the water well. In some areas, they require you to get a permit for a water well. I think that's just another way of them getting some money out of you. And check with the health department and see if there's any problems with water wells in your area. Check with your subcontractors to see if they have any issues on the water well. Because if there is a potential of you not hitting water, then it may be part of your contingency on the lot that you do not want to buy the lot unless you can hit water. So you may have to roll the dice on some money and go out there before you close on the land and have them dig down and verify you're not going to have any trouble getting water. Because if you're not going to hit water, you need to know it now, not after the home's built. But if it appears there's no issue on hitting water from the health department, from your subs, then I would take the chance, buy the lot, begin the process, and not install the well until this point. But I do want to go ahead and install the well because I do want to know that I've got water, and I do need water during the construction of the home. In the world of wells, you've got primarily two different types of wells. You've got one well where they will go out with an auger and they will dig down through the soft ground and they will get below the water table and they will tap into the water below the water table. And we normally call this a bored well. The other type of well is they'll get a drilling rig out there and they will drill down through the soft ground. They will tap into the rock layers. They'll go into the rock layers, and they'll tap into the water in the rock, and we call this a drilled well. The good part about a bored well is it's about a third of the cost of a drilled well. And some of your subcontractors that will bore a well, they may tell you for X number of dollars, we'll bore you a well and give you enough water for your home. And if we can't do that, you pay nothing, guaranteed. A problem with a bored well is if they're out boring for a well and you've had a lot of rain and the water table's pretty high, then you move into a drought situation and the water table drops, you could wind up with a dry well. So if I were boring a well, I'd go about as deep as they could go with that auger. And yes, they may give you enough water for one home, but that may be it. There may not be enough water for your yard or anything like that. Now, just between you and me, I do not like a bored well. Now, the good part about a drilled well is that quantity of water down there is pretty consistent. It's not affected so much by droughts. And the quantity can be unbelievable. Do you know that there are some cities that supply all their water needs off of one drilled well? It's not unusual at all for you to have enough water for an entire subdivision. A negative with the drill well is I know in the Atlanta area, the average drill well is about 325 feet in depth. You may go 60 feet and hit a gusher. You may be 600 feet in the ground and it still be a dry hole, and you say stop drilling. As a general rule, you will pay for that empty hole, win, lose, or draw. As a general rule, a drilled well is not guaranteed because many of your well drilling subs, they kind of know where or not they may encounter problems. Some of your well drilling subcontractors will guarantee a drill well, and you may pay a little extra, a premium, to get them to guarantee it. But if I were you, I would pay the extra to have them guarantee it. If you're going to have a septic tank, the health department is going to dictate where the septic tank is supposed to go, and more than likely they're going to draw this on your site plan. And the well needs to go 100 to 150 feet away from the septic tank so you do not contaminate it. The health department in your area can tell you how far you need to be away from the septic tank. And do not necessarily put the well way off in the woods like they used to do. Put it up near the home if possible. Now, don't put it in the home, because if you put it in the home or garage, you don't want the truck that services a well in the future, if you need to service it or go deeper or whatever, has a big boom on it, and you don't want to have to tear down your home or garage to service the well. But I would get with the well subcontractor, and the well subcontractor is going to give you some suggestions on a good place to place the well, because there's several things that you want to do. You don't want to put it in a low area where all the rainwater drains to where the well is. That can create a contamination problem. And the well subcontractor can give you some good suggestions on where they think you should place the well. And ideally, he can meet you during the clearing and grading to point out any good locations. And this way, you're not going to accidentally pile dirt where he needs to get in there and drill the well. And you also want to be conscious of any trees and stuff, because that boom has to have a lot of clearance to get in that location. But the well driller should be able to tell you all this if he can meet you there during the grading process. If you are, and more than likely you are, you're paying the well driller by the foot that they're drilling down. That being said, you may want to stay around and watch them and ask them questions, and they can tell you how they're able to determine when they hit water. I mean, you'll see the water and how much water you have. Because if they are drilling and hit a gusher at 60 feet, they've not gotten a very good return on their investment. And if you're not around to see what's going on and they drill down and hit a gusher at 60 feet, if you're not around to see what's going on, they may just keep on drilling. So I'm not saying anything derogatory about the well driller. I just know this happens. So if you're drilling a well, you may want to plan on being there, asking them questions. It's pretty interesting if you've never seen them do it before. And they can tell you when they hit water. And when they hit water, they can tell you how many gallons per minute you're getting out of that well. And if you're not getting enough gallons per minute that you would like, then you may want to go a little deeper to see if you can tap into more water. Because on a drilled well, what happens is this water will filter down through the ground through what they call aquifers and get further and further down in the ground. And when you drill down, you're tapping into that water that has filtered down via these aquifers further into the earth. So there may be cases where if you're not getting enough gallons per minute, then you may want to go a little deeper. Now, the average home could get by on like about 5 gallons of water per minute. But I want you to understand, if you've got an irrigation system, that irrigation system could require per sprinkler head 5 gallons a minute. If you have a big shower in the master bath with all these body sprays on it, each of those body sprays or that shower head could use 5 gallons of water per minute. So you need to do a little calculating to see if this is going to be a problem based on the amount of plumbing you have in the home, your irrigation system. Now, your irrigation system, you can divide it up. So you're not doing the entire property at one time. You'll do it in zones. One thing that we run into is we've had in recent years a number of droughts in metro Atlanta. And even though we may have city or county water, there have been restrictions on the water. And when you think of the money that some people pay in landscaping, they do not want to watch that landscaping die. So they will drill a well even in the city for their landscaping, for their irrigation. You may want to do that. Also, in some areas, because the water is tied into a sewage bill, the more water you use, the higher your bill is. So a lot of people like to put the irrigation on a well so that they're not paying that sewage charge. To let you know, we had a situation where we were installing a well on a large lot just for irrigation. And the amount of water we were getting per minute would not handle all the sprinkler heads that we had on this property. So what we did, we had two choices. We could either buy an underground water storage a water storage tank, or we could go with a cheaper above ground storage tank, which is what we chose to do. It was painted a dark green in color, and we were able to hide it with landscaping. And we went with a 3,000 gallon tank, and what would happen is the well would fill this 3,000 gallon tank, and we would use that tank to do the irrigation, and the well had no problem maintaining that tank, and it gave us plenty of irrigation or plenty of water to do the irrigation. So you may want to consider that if it turns out your drilled well doesn't have the amount of water you were hoping to get. If you're going to use this for water in the house, then naturally I would want to go with a good filter system to clean the water and just to purify it a little more in order to use it in the house. On the well, you can send a sample of water to the health department. They can tell you if there's any bacteria problems in the water, which a filter system would clear up. Also, the well driller many times can take a sample of water and test it to see if there's any minerals in the water that could create a problem for you, which again could be handled with a filtering system. The person that installs the well may or may not install the well pump. Normally they do, but a lot of times the well driller will work hand in hand with the company they recommend that installs the well pump. Also, when they drill the well, when they go down into the earth, they'll put what we call casing in the hole. And some of your well drillers will use PVC plastic for the casing. There is some, that's a cheaper way to go, but there is some potential problems with the PVC that you could encounter. My preference would be that you spend the additional money if you drill a well and you install the steel casing in the hole instead of the PVC plastic. And then inside that casing, they'll put the submersible pump down into the water. Also, when you're dealing with the company that installs the pump, and they can tell you several options you have on the pump, you want to have them put a spigot on the pump so you can access the well during construction. And you're going to have the electrician run a temporary line from the temporary power pole over to the well pump, so you will indeed have water during construction. When the home is completely finished, they will bury this line in the ground. Just to mention, in some mountainous areas, I know in the North Georgia mountains, you would go ahead and install the septic tank at this point. Normally, the septic tank is not installed until the home is constructed, as you'll find out as we go into the course. But because if you're on a steep lot, like in a mountainous area, when you build the home, it could be almost impossible to get the equipment in there to install a septic tank because the home's in the way now. So I know in some areas, like in mountainous areas, you would go ahead and install the septic tank now before you begin the construction of the home, so they've got adequate room to do this. And as I mentioned earlier, the health department is going to mandate where you put the septic tank.